You and I did an interview just after the start of the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Let's take a look at this.
Do you think he will use a nuclear weapon?
If necessary, he'll use a tactical battlefield weapon.
Even if it starts World War III?
It won't. Probably.
Why? Because we wouldn't respond?
What's in it for us?
If you let him do it and get away with it, where does that end? Then you are into a Hitler analogy.
Look, there's you can get yourself in a situation, no problem, where there's no good outcome.
I mean, here we are, Jordan. You know, we're 2 years later. We're in a stalemate. Putin is still rattling his nuclear weapons as a threatening, back-off, pretty menacing device. He's done that a few times and then not acted on it. But things are clearly very tense there. And there's a change coming in the presidency in America, which could be crucial as well. Where do you think we are with this war? Are we any better off or towards any kind of clarity or ending than we were when you and I spoke back then?
Well, I thought a week ago that the most likely outcome with regard to the outgoing Biden administration is that the military-industrial complex, who has a vested interest in seeing this war prolonged, would do something to provoke Russia into doing something that was unforgivable so that the war would have to continue. And that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's exactly, now I could be wrong, but that seems to me to be exactly what's happened this week. I mean, Biden, in the dying embers of his administration, decided that it was okay for Ukraine to use medium to long-range missiles, which is a hell of a thing to do as an outgoing president. And now they've also proposed that it will be acceptable for Ukraine to use a certain kind of distributable landmine. And it's like, this is independent of what you think about the war, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, really, is that what you do? That's the steps you take as a dead duck president in the final months of your administration, eh? I think that's a little bit on the provocative side. Now, my sense is that Putin will hold himself in check until Trump takes power, and that the war will come to a relatively rapid end soon thereafter. I don't know. I'm not a foreign policy expert, and the world's a very unpredictable place. But if I had to bet, that's what I would bet on, and I think it's a highly probable outcome. So we'll see. I mean, everything's up in the air, obviously, Piers. This new administration, this new Trump administration, God only knows what is going to happen with Musk involved and Vivek Ramaswamy and J.D. Vance and Mehmet Oz and RFK. I mean, you're a fool if you're going to predict the outcome of that.
What do you make of it? I mean, they're calling it the Avengers. What do you make of his picks? I mean, most of them are causing surprise. I'm not massively surprised because I think Trump tried the first time to do things in a more conventional way, and he felt that just didn't work for him. He's now had 4 years out of office to really think about it, and he's come back in and he's just hit the ground with people that he thinks are going to be basically very loyal, and then they're going to be quite disruptive in the way they go about their business. Yep. And he thinks that kind of disruptive, blunt instrument is actually exactly what America needs right now.
Well, I think what's happened fundamentally is that these remarkable people that have aggregated themselves around Trump understand very thoroughly that we're in a time of unprecedented rate of change. And I think that's pretty obvious to everyone, and that there are immense opportunities awaiting us and immense perils. And they're sufficiently concerned about the perils and sufficiently compelled by the opportunities to stake themselves politically and to take the risk of doing so. You know, people like Musk in particular, but Ramaswamy's in the same boat, essentially. These aren't people, and many of the other people around Trump, these aren't people who need the political power. Right. They already have lives. They're already have immense influence. I mean, for Musk to involve himself in the Department of Governmental Efficiency is obviously something that's taking him away from many other things that he's highly concerned about. But he obviously believes that the time demands that kind of response. And I think he's right. And, you know, more power to them. I'm strapped in for the ride as far as I'm concerned. I thought that what happened around Trump in the last 2 months of the election was absolutely remarkable, that these people aggregated themselves around him, and we're in for unprecedented times. And like, the Americans are a remarkable people, and you're always a fool to bet against them. And I think we have a good chance of seeing a revival of the American spirit that is unprecedented in our times.
Yeah, you know, there was a moment yesterday when Trump went down to see the latest SpaceX rocket launch with Musk, and it just made me think, this is great, actually. Whatever you think of the individual policies and everything else, there you've got the richest, most successful guy in the world, who actually is a big thinker, a big dreamer. And we're going to come to one of the themes of your book, which is about adventure, and how the Bible basically tells us to go and be adventurous, albeit with responsibility and everything else. So there's a real sort of theme that I see with this, where both Trump and Musk are adventurers. And there you had them going down to this rocket launch, and it didn't all go exactly how they hoped and everything else. But wow, I love the ambition. I love the fact that Elon Musk is prepared to say, I met him in France earlier this year, and hearing him talk about why we need to colonize Mars, how we would colonize Mars, how we would get to Mars if we colonize it, was absolutely riveting. And you've got to have an amazing big picture brain. We've got to have an amazing brain, full stop, but you've got to have an amazing big picture brain to think the way that he does. And if he's right next to Trump in this administration, I'm all for it.
That's my situation too. And I feel the same way about RFK. I mean, he's also a preposterous person. He's bigger than life. He's full of remarkable and crazy ideas. And I'm fascinated to see what he might put in place. And I would say the same thing about Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy's establishment of the Strive Fund was brilliant and daring. And we have brilliant and daring people in government. And that doesn't ever happen. And God only knows. I don't even know if it's a good thing under normal circumstances, because I think under normal circumstances you want competent administrators running your nation. But we're not in normal times. Far from it. And so I'm, like I said, strapped in, waiting, exactly as you pointed out, waiting for the adventure of this administration. Yeah, and everyone's sitting there thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, good. We should be thinking that, because we should be thinking out of the box, because conventional thinking hasn't got us very far. I'm always mindful of one of my favorite quotes in sport was Wayne Gretzky, a fellow Canadian, of course, the greatest ice hockey player that's ever lived. And his quote was simple: you'll miss 100% of the shots you never take. Right? I mean, simple as that.
Right. I mean,
that really is, to me, that's the difference in life between a certain type of person and another, is that certain people in life, they just take the shots and they don't mind failure. Elon Musk is going to see a lot of his rockets plummet into the ocean until he gets it right. But the thrill of the dare, of the adventure, of all of it, again, we'll come to this with your book, because it's one of the big themes. But I do think that I feel like it's invigorating right now. It might be slightly dangerous, and it might take us off on weird places, and it might not all work. But I do feel the scale of ambition is going to be invigorating.
Yep, amen to that. Definitely, that's exactly how I feel. And I also, you pointed out with regards to this book, that one of the definitions of God in the biblical library, in the story of Abraham in particular, is that God is in fact the voice of adventure. I mean, whenever people are discussing religious matters, one of the first questions that arises obviously is, well, what exactly is it that you're speaking of? What's your conceptualization of God? What constitutes the divine? And you could say the divine is the pinnacle of ambition or the foundation of reality. Those are both good ways of looking at it. And one of the answers in the biblical text is that God is the call to adventure. And that's definitely the case in the story of Abraham. And the idea there, which is an unbelievably deep idea and also one that works biologically, is that the full expression of the spirit that takes you beyond your zone of comfort and out into the terrible world is the same spirit that makes your life a blessing to you, that makes your name renowned among other people and for good reason, that helps you establish something of lasting value, and that does that in a way that brings benefit to everyone. And that's actually the deal that God offers Abraham in response to his willingness to embark on a life of adventure. And I think all of that's true. One of the rules I had with this book, Piers, was that I tried not to offer any explanations of the biblical text that weren't also fully justifiable from a scientific perspective, and usually from multiple different orientation places on the scientific side. And so why wouldn't the spirit of adventure take us out into the world in the most glorious possible manner? Like, what the hell else would it possibly be for?
Yeah.